And I've seen the footage of it, and there's this point where I can see on my face, it's like, oh my God, this is...
Jimmy Page stands as one of rock music's most influential figures. As the guitarist for Led Zeppelin, he created sounds and songs that shaped an entire generation of music. His innovative guitar work and production skills resulted in some of the most celebrated albums ever recorded. Despite his incredible success and legendary status, even someone of Page's caliber has songs he wishes had turned out differently or never been released at all. Recent information suggests that Page has been quite open in private settings about certain tracks that he finds disappointing or even embarrassing. These aren't just songs by other artists that he dislikes. Some of the tracks he has criticized most harshly are actually his own work with Led Zeppelin. This revelation is particularly surprising because many of these songs are beloved by fans and were commercially successful. Industry professionals who have worked with Page claim he has expressed genuine frustration and regret about these particular recordings during studio sessions and in private conversations over the years. The nature of his complaints varies considerably. Sometimes he felt the technical execution fell short of what he envisioned. Other times, he was forced into creative compromises due to record label pressure, time constraints, or disagreements with other band members. Understanding which songs Page dislikes and why provides fascinating insight into the mind of a perfectionist artist who built his reputation on innovation and uncompromising quality. One of the songs that reportedly bothers Page is Hot On for Nowhere from the Presence album. This deep cut from Led Zeppelin's catalog has allegedly been described by Page as an idea that should never have progressed beyond the rehearsal stage. The song was recorded during an extremely challenging period for the band. Robert Plant, the lead singer, was recovering from serious injuries sustained in a car accident, and the entire group was under tremendous pressure from their record label to complete an album quickly. According to people who were present during the recording sessions, Page never felt satisfied how this particular track came together. The circumstances were simply too rushed and chaotic for his standards. Sources suggest that Page believed the song sounded messy and lacked focus in the final mix. The guitar tone didn't match what he had originally imagined, and the overall structure of the song felt incomplete to him. He reportedly felt that the track needed at least 2 additional weeks of work, but the record label was insistent on a prompt release, leaving no time for the refinement Page wanted. Fans of Led Zeppelin have mixed opinions about this song. Some listeners consider it an underrated gem that showcases a raw, aggressive energy that differs from the band's more polished work. Others tend to agree with Page's assessment, viewing it as one of the weaker entries in Zeppelin's impressive catalog. Music critics at the time of its release barely mentioned the song in their reviews, which apparently frustrated Page even further. What bothers him most about this track, according to insiders, is the sense of wasted potential. He had a vision for something genuinely powerful and innovative, but circumstances forced him to settle for less than his standards demanded. Another song from the troubled Presence album sessions that Page has reportedly dismissed is Candy Store Rock. Sources close to the guitarist say he has privately described this track as a throwaway song that should never have been included on the final album. He considers it one of his most significant creative mistakes. The song was intended to be an upbeat, fun rocker inspired by the rock and roll music of the 1950s. However, according to people who were present during the recording, Page felt the final result came across as forced and immature. According to people who worked in the studio during these sessions, Page felt his guitar was buried beneath multiple layers of electronic instrumentation. One producer mentioned that Page appeared visibly uncomfortable during playback sessions when they listened to the recorded track. The real source of tension came from questions about creative control. Plant and Jones were enthusiastically pushing for a new musical direction, embracing the keyboard-driven sounds that were popular in the late 1970s. Page, however, wanted to maintain Led Zeppelin's identity as a guitar-centered rock band.
Sources close to the group say there were heated discussions about how the song should be arranged. Page reportedly wanted more prominent guitar sections throughout the track, but he was outvoted by the other band members. Fans remain divided about Carousel Alhambra even today. Some listeners praise its ambitious scope and willingness to experiment with different sounds. Others feel it sounds like a completely different band and doesn't capture what made Led Zeppelin special. Music critics at the time noted the obvious shift away from Page's signature style, which apparently bothered him considerably. What frustrates Page most about this song is its length, combined with what he perceives as his minimal contribution. At over 10 minutes, it became one of Led Zeppelin's longest studio recordings, yet he feels his guitar work was relegated to a secondary role. When a journalist once asked him about the track, Page gave a dismissive answer and quickly changed the subject. Industry veterans suggest this song symbolizes the creative differences that would eventually contribute to the band's breakup. Perhaps even more controversial is Page's reported attitude toward All My Love, one of Led Zeppelin's most beloved ballads. This song was a massive commercial hit that fans absolutely adore, but Page has been surprisingly critical of it throughout the years. He once described it in an interview as not being his kind of music and has consistently tried to distance himself from the track. The song was deeply personal for Robert Plant, written as a tribute to his son, Carac, who had tragically died. While the emotional content was meaningful, the musical arrangement leaned heavily on synthesizers and keyboards, with John Paul Jones driving the creative direction. Page's guitar takes a background role throughout most of the song, which bothered him immensely. Music historians have pointed out that Page felt this song crossed an important line for the band. It sounded too much like mainstream pop music for his taste, straying from the bluesy, hard-rocking foundation he wanted Led Zeppelin to maintain. One music writer noted that Page believed the band was losing its core identity, and All My Love represented everything he feared about their new musical direction. The commercial success of the song actually made things worse from Page's perspective. Radio stations played it constantly, and it became one of their most recognizable songs from their later period. But Page viewed this popularity as validating the wrong approach. He wanted Led Zeppelin to be remembered for powerful guitar riffs and blues authenticity, not for keyboard-driven ballads that could fit on any pop radio station. Fans were shocked when Page's negative feelings about the song became publicly known. Many people consider All My Love to be a touching tribute and a beautiful piece of music. Critics have called Page's stance stubborn and out of touch with what listeners actually enjoy. Despite this criticism, Page has remained firm in his position. For him, this track represents a compromise of artistic vision that continues to bother him years later. Another surprising entry on the list of songs Page dislikes is Fool in the Rain, which became a top 20 hit and remains a favorite among many fans. According to music industry professionals, Page once called it too polished and safe for what Led Zeppelin should have represented. The song featured a Latin-inspired rhythm and a whistled melody that made it extremely radio-friendly and accessible to mainstream audiences. That accessibility was precisely what bothered Page. He had built his entire reputation on raw power and innovative guitar work, not on catchy pop hooks designed for commercial radio play. Sources indicate he fought against the song's commercial direction, but was overruled by the other members. What particularly bothered Page was the production style used for this track. The song was meticulously crafted and carefully arranged, which went directly against his preference for spontaneous energy and a live performance feel. A sound engineer who worked on the album recalled that Page seemed emotionally disconnected during the recording sessions, simply going through the motions without his usual passion or creative intensity. The guitar solo arrives quite late in the song and feels almost like an afterthought, which was humiliating for a guitarist of Page's exceptional talent and reputation. He reportedly wanted a complete restructuring of the song that would highlight his guitar playing more prominently, but the band preferred to keep the existing arrangement. One music writer suggested that Page felt reduced to merely a supporting player on his own record.
When Fool in the Rain climbed the charts and became a hit, Page's frustration only deepened. The public enthusiastically loved exactly what he hated about the song, its smooth accessibility and mainstream appeal. Colleagues who have worked with Page mention that he rarely speaks positively about this period in the band's history, and this song represents his loss of creative authority within the group he had helped build from the beginning. The song that Page apparently dislikes most intensely is Do Your Maker from the album Houses of the Holy. This reggae-influenced track has become one of the most divisive songs in Led Zeppelin's entire catalog, and Page has been remarkably honest about his negative feelings toward it over the decades. In various interviews throughout the years, Page has made his distaste quite clear. He has called it a joke that went too far, and has admitted that the band should never have included it on the album. The title itself is a British play on words related to Jamaica, which indicates how seriously Page took this musical experiment. The song was primarily Robert Plant's idea, inspired by the popularity of reggae music in the early 1970s. Page never felt comfortable working within this particular style. His guitar work on the track sounds stiff and uncertain, lacking the confidence and mastery that defines his best performances. Music critics noticed this immediately upon the album's release, with some calling it Led Zeppelin's most awkward musical moment. What makes this song the top entry on the list is the lasting damage Page believes it caused to his reputation. For years, critics and music commentators have pointed to DR Maker as evidence that Led Zeppelin couldn't successfully handle musical genres outside their natural comfort zone. This criticism cuts particularly deep for someone who prided himself on versatility and innovation throughout his career. Fans remain completely split in their opinions about this song. Some find it charming and fun, enjoying it as a lighthearted experiment. Others cringe at what they perceive as an awkward and unsuccessful attempt at reggae music. Page firmly places himself in the latter group. He has mentioned in conversations that if he could erase one single song from Led Zeppelin's entire discography, this would be his choice without any hesitation. The track represents several things Page finds troubling: artistic compromise forced upon him, a failed experiment that didn't achieve its goals, and what he sees as a permanent stain on an otherwise exceptional legacy. These 6 songs reveal the complex relationship between an artist's vision and the final products they create. They show that even legendary musicians struggle with compromise, time pressure, creative disagreements, and the challenge of maintaining artistic integrity while meeting commercial demands. Page's dissatisfaction with these tracks provides valuable insight into the mind of a perfectionist who holds himself to extraordinarily high standards. While millions of fans enjoy many of these songs and consider them important parts of Led Zeppelin's catalog, Page's perspective reminds us that the creator's experience of their work can be very different from the audience's reception. His criticisms stem from his deep commitment to musical excellence and his specific vision of what Led Zeppelin should represent. Whether one agrees with his harsh judgments or loves these controversial tracks, understanding his perspective adds another dimension to appreciating the complexity of creating enduring rock music.